In the annals of American capital punishment, Kenneth Eugene Smith's name became etched in history not only for the crime he committed, but for the unprecedented method of his execution. On January 25th, 2024 in Alabama, Smith became the first person in the United States, and likely the world, to be executed using nitrogen hypoxia. The crime that led Smith to death row occurred decades earlier, in March 1988. Elizabeth Sennett, the 45-year-old wife of a preacher, Charles Sennett Sr., was found brutally murdered in their home in Colbert County, Alabama. She had been stabbed repeatedly and bludgeoned to death. Investigations revealed a chilling murder-for-hire plot. Charles Sennett Sr., who was heavily in debt and had taken out a significant insurance policy on his wife, had orchestrated her killing to collect the insurance money. He hired Billy Gray Williams as a middleman, who in turn recruited Kenneth Eugene Smith and John Forrest Parker to carry out the murder for $1,000 each. During the attack, Elizabeth Sennett fought for her life, but was ultimately overcome. When investigators began to close in on Charles Sennett Sr. as a suspect, he committed suicide. Kenneth Eugene Smith and John Forrest Parker were both arrested and charged with capital murder. Parker was convicted and executed by lethal injection in 2010. Smith's legal journey was more protracted. He was initially convicted in 1989, and the jury recommended a life sentence. However, the trial judge overrode the jury's recommendation and sentenced him to death, a practice known as judicial override, which Alabama later abolished but did not make retroactive. Smith was convicted again at a retrial in 1996, and this time the jury voted 11-1 to recommend a death sentence, which the judge imposed. Over the years, Smith's appeals focused on various issues, including the judicial override and claims of ineffective counsel. His case gained renewed attention when Alabama scheduled his execution by lethal injection for November 2022. However, that attempt was called off at the last minute after the execution team struggled for hours to set an IV line, an experience Smith's attorneys described as torturous. Following the failed lethal injection attempt, Alabama sought to execute Smith using a new untested method, nitrogen hypoxia. This method involves replacing breathable air with pure nitrogen, causing death by depriving the body of oxygen. Proponents argued it would be more humane, while opponents and medical experts raised serious concerns about the potential for a painful, terrifying death and the lack of established protocols. Smith's legal team fought vehemently against the use of nitrogen gas, arguing it was cruel and unusual punishment, and that he was being used as a test subject. They highlighted the experimental nature of the procedure and the potential for botched execution. International bodies, including the UN Human Rights Office, also expressed alarm. Despite numerous legal challenges and appeals that went up to the US Supreme Court, Alabama was ultimately allowed to proceed. On the evening of January 25th, 2024, Kenneth Eugene Smith was executed at the Holman Correctional Facility in Atmore, Alabama. A respirator-like mask was placed over his face and pure nitrogen gas was administered. Eyewitness accounts from media observers described Smith appearing to shake and convulse for several minutes, followed by heavy breathing before he was pronounced dead. The execution took approximately 22 minutes from the time the nitrogen began to flow. Kenneth Eugene Smith's execution reignited intense debate about capital punishment, the search for humane execution methods, and the ethical implications of using novel, untested procedures on condemned inmates. His case remains a significant and controversial landmark in the history of the death penalty in the United States. The story of Kenneth Eugene Smith and his execution is a complex and controversial one. What do you think about Alabama's decision to use nitrogen gas? We want to hear from you in the comments. For more deep dives into challenging true crime cases and legal history, don't forget to subscribe to and like this video if you found it compelling.